fellow classic TV fans, and welcome to Retro TV Radio. Joyce Bulifant is a force of nature. Her memoir, My Four Hollywood Husbands, will likely tell you that. I've read it and was astonished by how much she put up with and her Herculean efforts to keep it all together for the sake of her kids. She reveals her deepest challenges dealing with her prominent Hollywood husbands, which she clearly shows as a task no one would want. But through it all, Joyce does her best to spare her children and stepchildren from being negatively affected by all the crazy excess, let alone thinking that her famous husbands brought her. With an illustrious career spanning stage and the big and little screens, her familiar face and hyper-bubbly personality have delighted fans for decades. We discuss her role on The Mary Tyler Moore Show as Murray's wife, as well as being a very popular and sought-after celebrity contestant on iconic game shows like Password and often the raunchy Match Game. And who could forget her hilarious appearance as the sick little girl's mother giving CPR to her daughter after a freak guitar-playing incident in the movie Airplane. Enjoy! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast the immensely talented Joyce Bulifant. Joyce, how are you?
Oh my goodness, I'm just fine after you said immensely talented. Wow. That's something to live up to.
I think you have lived up to it.
Thank you.
I can attest to that because I am on page 239 of a book.
Uh-oh. You know all about me now. Uh-oh.
Yes. Here's the kicker. I've only had it for 2 days.
Oh, really? And you're going through it that quickly?
I think the term page turner directly applies to this.
Well, that's so kind. I hope that's good. I think that's good.
Well, it is. I mean, I thought of I thought of an alternate title after getting this far. I was thinking, it could also be called, of course, the title of it is, of course, My Four Hollywood Husbands. But
yes.
How does this grab you? Fires and earthquakes and landslides. Oh, my. But enough about my ex-husbands.
I like that. I like that. I tell you, I've been through it all.
Yes. Yes, that's a pretty good analogy. Actually, I was thinking, boy, it could just as easily be called that because...
Oh, yes.
Holy smokes.
I know.
And yet through it all, the takeaways for me, and of course, I'm not quite through yet. I still have a few more pages to go, but it's that through it all, you are an immensely... Okay, so we already said immensely talented, but I'm going to say immensely good mother.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I always kind of look for the bright side, always look for the bright side of life. And there's so much good in life that, the bad happens, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and yet it seemed to happen a lot more to you than most.
Well, I did put myself in harm's way at times.
Well, and again, anything that is above ground is still better than the alternative. And I know just in the last couple of days, we celebrate classic television in this podcast, and we've just taken a couple of real gut punches.
I know. And I have with my personal friends also, and I guess it's getting to be this ripe old age that happens. It's painful. I do remember when I read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Hemingway, that the last line is, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Because when anyone dies that we know personally or have watched, it is a part of us dies with them.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I was a big Addams Family fan, and Lisa Loring was just a couple years older than me, and I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Just too young, Cindy Williams, now she'd had
I know. I saw that this morning. I couldn't believe it.
decent run, 75, but even then, in this day and age, that's still young. And
it is. It's very young to me.
Yes, and me too.
Yes.
But, I'm reading this book. I'm loving this book. And folks, you got to get this book because you won't be able to put it down, much like my experience. But the problem really from the initial opening was, I really am a Hawaii Five-0 fan.
Right. Yeah.
But, maybe somebody should have just booked Dano. I don't.
No. I keep thinking a lot as I get older in my life. I think a lot about Jimmy, and I do a show, a one-woman show called Remembering Helen Hayes with Love, and there's a section in it that I run film of Jimmy and me traveling and laughing, and I sing along to it. Smile. Smile, though your heart is aching. And here you see this young couple so full of life, so blessed, so happy. Yet Jimmy was so troubled. And that's what attracted me. I realized, looking back on my life, that a lot of my codependency was a bit of a big ego, thinking that someone who was sad and unhappy, that if I loved them, they'd be happy, it'd be okay. I just didn't know. I was very young, and I just always wanted people to be happy. And if I saw someone lonely and sad, I wanted to make it go away. And I thought if I loved them, it would do it. But obviously, no. Alcoholism is a terrible disease, and that I can't do anything about that. And I'm not a miracle worker, but I didn't realize that for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and of course, folks, we're talking about James MacArthur, who was Joyce's first husband. And my gosh, you guys were together since high school. So, I mean, I don't know how right out of the starting gate you could have known all that you were going to end up having to deal with, because, of course, it's a progressive disease.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So I think, to say something in your credit, you really didn't know, initially getting in. And right, who wouldn't fall in love with you and go, yep, she can fix anything? I mean, I would.
Oh, thank you. I wish I had a magic wand, and I wish that I hadn't been the cause of my children being in a situation that was so unhappy for them. And I mean, when you are around alcoholic parents, it's very difficult for the children, and it does make a scar on their heart that doesn't go away.
Right.
And I ask their forgiveness all the time and say how sorry I was. And it's hard. I mean, I see it today, and I can't make that go away, and I wish I could. And that's why I think I wrote the book mostly was to help in some way any woman or man or a relationship where alcohol is involved, that you need to really think carefully about young people having babies and everything that are brought into that kind of environment. It's very difficult for them as they grow up.
Yeah. I've seen it firsthand, and I think a large portion of America has. I mean, it's or
yes.
around the world. I mean, let's face it. It serves its purpose. It eases the pressure, and then one step over the line, and sweet Jesus, it's all.
I know.
It's a
Well,
mess.
unfortunately, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I have a great sadness that here we were, two young people, both. We were working in theater and film and doing what we loved, and had two beautiful children and could travel the world. And I look back on it and I'm thinking, how sad that all of that was destroyed by alcohol.
Yeah.
Just we could have had the most wonderful life. As it turned out, we ended up being great friends right to the end, because we were really more like brother and sister, having been in boarding school together, and met each other when we were 14.
Yeah.
And we had a tremendous rapport back and forth of teasing each other, and the kids loved that. I mean, I always would I was friends with all my former husbands, and when there were children involved, you really had to remain friends for them.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and of course, you dive into these pages, it's like, boy, I don't think I'd ever want to be friends with someone like that. And of course, you're raised in a Hollywood, for lack of a better term, a Hollywood brat. Your mother's Helen Hayes. I mean, look, what kind of reality are you living in?
Yeah, and he was also adopted.
Yes.
And his sister, who was the natural child of Helen and Charlie, died when she was 19 of polio. And that was a big hurt for Jimmy, too, because he really loved her. And then Charlie and Helen had that grief together and sort of left Jimmy out of that time. I mean, I saw that he had a very difficult life. And I know that in his biological mother, at least, that there was alcoholism. I knew that later. And the disease, it is inherited. It's something you really have to fight against.
Yes. Well, I mean, the thing that I kind of picked up sort of reading between the lines as best I could in regards to him was that, yeah, he did all these terrible things, and he was mean, and then he was this and he was that. And tell me if I'm wrong here, Joyce, but it seemed like every time an opportunity for you as far as your career came up, he seemed very supportive. Oh,
yes, he was supportive of me, but every time that my career was on the rise and he got a film in Europe or was doing something, I let mine drop and went with him to try to be a good wife and mother. And that happened a few times, but that's okay because I ended up just fine, and it all worked out. As far as my career, I think I had just the kind of career that I like, that maybe 1 in 1,000 people say, "Aren't you Joyce Bulifant?" And I smile, and I'm amazed that they get the name Bulifant up. So I was never a big star that had to fight off fans, but the few that I have are so kind and are warm and loving people, and that makes me happy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, let's face it, your track record speaks for itself. You have done so much across the mediums of movies, television, Broadway. I mean, you've done it all.
Am I lucky? Am I lucky?
Well, luck is luck, but you still got to back it up with talent. And I'm sure you were able to do that.
Yes. Well, I had good training, very good training.
Well, and you worked with so many greats. I mean, the list is just wow.
Yeah.
But in the classic era, which is, of course, where we kind of focused the show, because for me it was the best, there were different genres. And I'm speaking specifically of television, which, of course, you were huge on. Would you say that was your... for most people that I ask this question, they're like, nothing beats the stage. Nothing beats the stage.
That's right. That's right. I would agree, but there's another form that I really enjoy, and that's four-camera television, because you're performing. It's as if you're doing a mini play every week, and you have an audience. And I love that. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. You're not stuck in a long run doing the same character every night on stage. You do a different show every week, and it's really fun.
Right. And so the audience, say there was a studio audience, was that something you felt?
Oh, it really helps. Yes. Mm-hmm. You get your laughs, you get your rapport with the audience, which is what you want as a performer. At least I did. That feeling that comes from the audience and getting them to laugh and go along with you. That's a great feeling.
And see, you never would have got that if you were Mrs. Brady. I'm sorry, that just wouldn't have happened.
No, but I would have been very wealthy.
Oh, I don't know. The canned laughter, what's it worth? I mean, again, I look at your resume and it's like, that was not as big of a mess as you may think compared to, what you've done. And I'm curious, when it comes to the genre of style of show, I know you've done it all in that area too. You've got drama, you've got comedy, you've got game shows, you got westerns.
Yes.
What would you call your favorite? What was the one you wanted to gravitate towards if you had the chance?
Oh, that's interesting, because being a performer, you love it all. I mean, I loved all of it. I mean, having people laugh when you did something, that just filled my heart. But for me personally, doing a dramatic role, that did something that fed me personally, as being able, I guess, to have emotions that maybe I wasn't allowed to have at times, and so you get to act out those emotions, and so that's a different kind of gratification than the comedy part. So I love both of them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure in your case, anytime to get dramatic would be a huge release.
Right. Let me do a dramatic role, please.
I got to get it out of me.
Yeah. Well, the old saying that all the actors know, the famous story about the man who's dying, and somebody says to him, is it hard to do? Oh God, I'm not going to get this right. That's what happens as you get older. Is dying hard? And he says, no, dying's easy. Comedy's hard. And it is, but that's what makes it so wonderful. You try this way, you try that inflection, you try this gesture, you try all these different things till you get it right, and the audience laughs, and that's just heaven. Right.
And of course, you match it up with that angelic voice of yours, and I think about a quote that I heard from a mutual friend, as a matter of fact. They said that Betty White specifically said, Joyce Bulifant could tell a dirty joke and make it sound like a nursery rhyme.
That's right. So I get away with telling a lot of naughty jokes.
Don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Oh, no. Not on your show.
Not until I press stop on the machine. Then you can just
right.
have at me.
Right. No, well, again, it's a way to make people laugh, right?
Right. And of course, you have the vehicles. I mean, working with these people, these great comedians. And oh my gosh, I mean, Mary Tyler Moore, obviously, that goes down as, well, one of the most classic television comedies in history.
And yes, I was lucky to be on that.
Yeah, you feel it was luck. I mean, I think you weren't one of the main characters, but you really filled in. You know, you were a great support. Is that what you would call it, a support player, or?
Yes, a supporting. It was a reoccurring role.
Right.
And I was so busy doing 2 other shows at that time that I couldn't always be there. So I think they got Georgette to come in to be Ted's wife because she could be there all the time. But I couldn't. I was doing the Bill Cosby show, and I was doing another show that I was starring in called Love Thy Neighbor, which I loved doing. So I was trying to balance that. Plus, one day they called me to come in for a table reading, and I said, I'm in the labor room giving birth.
I just read that part.
I don't think I can make it.
But I'll try.
Right, I would have, yes. Jumped up and taken the baby with me.
Oh, yeah. See, and that's the thing. It's the work, and as I said earlier, but what a wonderful mother. I mean, you really, I know you said you feel some regrets, but my takeaway from this book was you did everything you could with what you had. I mean, I've just loved this, being able to talk to my heroes, and you're definitely one of them. I've loved everything you've done, and yes, I would be one of those 1 in 1,000 people that would go.
Thank you.
Let's play some match game. No, I mean.
Right. Oh, I know. I lost so much money for people, but where I was really good was on Password and Password Plus. I won a lot of money for people in that. I think it's being dyslexic because when you're dyslexic, you use mnemonics a lot where you have to think of one word to get to another. And that's what Password is all about.
Right.
You know, you have to come up with a word, and I was really good at that. I couldn't believe it. It was almost like, I don't know, it was instinctual. Working with the different contestants and looking in their eyes and thinking, you know, what will they get? If I say this word, do you think they'll get that? And one time, one of the clues for all the clues you get was handkerchief. And I said Louis Armstrong. And I was right.
Now the question is, did they get it?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
They did. I know.
Well, I think he had a good partner, too. Because I would have been more like pneumonia.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
But, of course, it would have been a name or a person, right?
Right. Well, sometimes I look at YouTube when I'm just sitting having a cup of tea or something, and I watch Password to see if I come up with the same words that I did so many years ago. And often I do. So my brain is still thinking the same way.
Yeah, so you can take it that Password was your heaven, whereas something like Scrabble was your nightmare.
Oh, forget Scrabble. Oh, my God. Anything to do with spelling? No way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you when it comes to that. I'm not dyslexic, or is it dyslexic?
Right.
But no, I don't have that. But boy, oh boy, my spelling and my grammar. Sometimes I wonder if I was ever actually in school.
I know what you mean.
I think I was there, but was I paying attention?
It's funny when I'm writing, I always have to, and when I'm editing, I go back and I always put the subject at the end of the sentence instead of the beginning. It's really funny. I have the thought, then I put the subject. So I have arrows all over yellow legal pads.
That's me.
Right.
Well, and again, I haven't reached the end of the book. And I don't want to spoil it for myself. So let's talk about the end of the book, Joyce. Wait a minute.
I'm not going to tell you anything. You just have to get to the end.
I was still like, okay, when are Roger and her going to end up and get together again?
Right. Well, that's the idea of the book. You know, it was not ever going to be called My 4 Hollywood Husbands. I started writing it 23 years ago, and it was called Home Sweet Home, Where Is It? Because I think you get a little bit of the indication that I moved a lot, but not as much in the book as I actually did. And I thought that would be an interesting story to tell from the time I was a little girl and the places I lived and what they were like. And I have tremendous recall on what was in a room, what fabric was there, all kinds of things, what the windows looked out on. And I was going to describe more the places I lived and a few of the things that happened in the houses as I was looking for that home sweet home. But then a friend of mine called one day and said, Joyce, I have the title for your book. And I said, what? He said, My 4 Hollywood Husbands. I said, Bruce, that is disgusting. That is just so tasteless. I would never, ever title my book that. But it might sell copies. So I took a whole different turn and thought, well, I think if I'm going to talk about my husbands, maybe I can be helpful and talk about things that would help other people that are caught in a situation of alcoholism and codependency. And so that's the turn it took, along with the background of the golden age of Hollywood and Rogers and my love story. So those 3 threads sort of wind through the book.
Yes, and it keeps you interested. And that, again, is why the way you did it, too, is so skillful, because it's almost like there's something coming. You always know there's something coming, right? So I got to I got to go to the next page. And sure enough, it's an earthquake, it's...
I think that's because of my involvement in plays, is that to end a chapter, to make it interesting, to want to go on to the next chapter. Don't have a button on it and have your reader be interested in, well, what's going to happen now?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm glad you got that.
Oh, yes. I think I've, 23 years to write and 2 days to read. I don't know, Joyce.
I know. Something's wrong. What's wrong with this picture?
Well, I think it serves it, because you obviously put so much care into it.
It was 750 pages. So I had an editor help me, and she was, cutting out whole pieces of your life. It was like you're missing your hand and then your arm and then your shoulder. And yet when she did that and I learned how to edit, I was at a dyslexia conference and I went off to my room and I just started editing myself like crazy. I understood what she meant. It's just like in film, you want to keep it moving, keep it going. Don't go over those things that maybe were very important to you at the moment, but really don't move the story forward. And that's what I learned to do. And I started, taking out big chunks. It hurt every time I did it. But I thought, maybe I should go back and take all those chunks I took out. And there's another book there. I was working on a book that my friends and my children's friends have asked me to write. And it was about helping someone that you love go through that transition of leaving this world onto the next world. And what I went through with Roger. And I started writing it a while ago, a couple of years ago. And he passed away 4 years ago. And then it was so hard. It was reliving it was just making me hurt. And so everybody said, where's your book? We need that. We need to know how to do this. And so I'm back at the computer trying to put that down.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, just for the record, Roger Perry is in my favorite Star Trek episode, or one of my favorite Star Trek episodes. Tomorrow is Yesterday, where he's the fighter pilot that they accidentally beam aboard. But, so in case you guys wanted to put a face to the name, and he's done a lot. But, of course, us Trekkies,
Right.
That's how we'll remember him. I wonder, all four are gone. Do you think they would have been... this may not be a proper question.
I'm an open book. What is it?
Do you think they would have been happy that you told the story the way you did and in a way where it could actually help somebody?
Well, I know Roger, once it became my 4 Hollywood husbands, he helped with the grammar because I had to rewrite the whole thing. And it was when he was going through radiation treatments. And I would rewrite a chapter and give it to him, and he would correct the spelling and the punctuation and give it back to me. But what was wonderful about that is he got to read and reread how much I loved him over and over. And he knew that I loved Bill Asher, that I was married to before. And we were all friends. When we would come to the desert, we'd take Bill and his new wife out to dinner. And that was a very special relationship that I had with Bill. And Roger understood that. And I think it's interesting. I don't know how they would feel about it. Isn't that interesting? I wonder if they would glean anything that would help them if they were younger. Bill, Ed knew his demons. He knew what he was about. And I don't think he would have minded. But what I did do is I gave all the pages to the children, all my children, my stepchildren and my children. And I said, if there's anything in here that you don't want me to write about or to say, now's your time, and I won't do it. And none of them came back with anything except Bill's eldest daughter said, I kind of wish you didn't have to say quite as much. But she didn't give me specific, So I otherwise that was it. And that was after the book, because I gave it to her before. I gave them all the copy before it was printed.
Well, that's brilliant.
That's brilliant. I don't know.
That's thinking it through.
Yeah, right. Well, I really didn't want to say anything that would upset them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say anything. And I say in the book, I say, this is my perspective. This is my truth.
Right.
It could have happened other ways. I mean, everyone looks out the same window and sees something different.
Right. Well, and let's face it, folks, it's an extraordinary world that you guys lived in. I mean, it's not your everyday reality.
No.
Not that people function any better in everyday reality, but I think there's this...
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think that there's this presumption, though, that, oh, my gosh, you've got it all. You've got the money. You've got the cars, the house. It must be just great.
No, not at all. It's, first of all, you have to work very hard to get that.
Yeah.
And it isn't about that at all. I think I talk about that big, incredibly beautiful English Tudor home that Bill and I had when we first got married. And 6 months later, he looked at me and said, everything I thought I wanted, I don't want. And that was like, he wasn't a father. He didn't want children around. He didn't want my children around. And all of that was discussed in detail before we got married. I said, if I was married to you and we had children, you would always come first. I said, but my children came before you. And they're my first responsibility. Are you able to handle that? Because if you aren't, this isn't going to work. I really, I need to take care of my children and their feelings. And he just wasn't prepared to be a father. He said, oh, yeah, oh, no, this is what I always wanted. Oh, I always wanted to come home to dinner and sit around the table with the children and, do all that. He didn't want that at all. But he didn't really say it until 6 months into the marriage. And I said, well, I think you better leave and go to a hotel. And that's the end of this marriage. And I went off and did, I had to make money because I had signed all these quitclaim deeds after we were married. And I had put all my money into redecorating this house, this huge house. And I was so lost. It was a very, very low point in my life. And I had to go on the road. I went on the road and did a play called Vanities. And on Mother's Day, he brought my 3 children to Detroit to see the play and brought me a gift and said, can we talk? And during that whole rehearsal time of Vanities, I was reading every book about relationships and marriage and trying to figure out what I was doing wrong and how do I keep getting into these messes, So he stayed and we walked and took walks in the woods and we talked and decided to try to make it work. There were things that he was unhappy about that I changed and things he changed. I mean, both of us bent. And I said to him on that walk, I can bend just so far, but then I'll break and then it won't be good for us. And I said, but I'm willing to bend if you're willing to bend. So we both did. And it ended up being a very, very happy marriage for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it's a giving.
And he became a great father to his children and mine.
Now that's what I wanted to hear. I don't know if I got to that part yet.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Where are you so I don't spoil anymore?
Page 239. So I
don't know what happened on 239.
I'm going to say 7/8 through.
That still doesn't help me.
No, I mean, there's only a few pages left, but
right.
I think they contain a lot.
Okay, they must do.
Oh no, I love it. And again, folks, you've got to get this book. And by the way, it's available on Amazon, which is where I got it. And
And you know what? It's available in Target. I heard.
Well, perfect.
Isn't that weird? I mean, I got a notice saying we have to take so much out of the profits of your book, which isn't very much anyway. And I said, okay, I'm not a very good business person about that. So I don't know, but Amazon probably is the safest.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I ordered it, I got it in 1 day, and I finished it in 2.
That's amazing. Well, thank you.
It's just that good, and I mean that seriously. I don't blow smoke. It's a great read, and it's brutally honest, and which is something. Look, that's something we all need. We just need to be honest, and we need to have somebody that has lived through it tell the honest story. If I was any of your husbands, I would be like, yeah, tell the story.
I was wondering if you were one of those husbands, how would you feel reading it?
Well, this is so sudden.
Yes.
Is that a proposal?
Right.
Oh, no.
Right, yes.
If I was one of those husbands and reading it, I think I would be going, oh, she got it all wrong. She is not even there. How does she know that? I mean, maybe my male ego would have gotten in the way. But I'm the person that tends to look at myself in the mirror and go, oh, you just screwed up. Oh, that guy again, So right. I do turn inward. And I've been told I beat myself up.
Yeah.
I think, again, that's a common thing for a lot of people. And I don't do it to the point where I turn into a monster. So in that way,
right.
I'm a father. Yeah. I'm a father, and I've been married for 26 years, and it's...
That's great. God bless you.
Thanks.
God bless you, son.
Thank you. Well, I got lucky. I found the right woman, and we had two wonderful, wonderful kids. And
great.
So, there's a happy way to do it, folks.
Yes, there is.
But again, you've done so much. You were saying you decorated that home, and I know you found out you had skills as a decorator too. Yes,
well, that was that was an interesting story. I think that's in the book too, yes, about how I became a decorator. But that helped. You should always, as an artist in any field, you need to have another profession that you can fall back on.
Right.
Because the arts don't feed the bulldog.
I like that one. My wife will be telling me that forever now.
Right.
By the way, what do you got to fall back on?
Right, exactly.
You?
Right. Behind every man.
Exactly right. Behind every great man, there was a woman, and her name was Joyce Bulifant. I'm telling you.
Oh, well, God, that's very kind of you. More than kind.
It's true. That's why it's more than kind.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
I thank you for spending your time with me today. I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And that is, what surprised you the most about becoming successful in show business? The way you looked at it when you started to where you are now, what was the biggest surprise?
I never thought of it as being a surprise. Sometimes when people say, like you did this morning in the introduction, something wonderful you said, that I don't think of myself as being any different than anyone else. So I'm shocked if people know me. I'm shocked that people want to interview me. It's just like, but I'm just like you. I'm just like everybody. What? I don't understand. I don't understand celebrity kind of thing. I understand Helen Hayes, Fred Astaire, Ingrid Bergman, wow, but not Joyce Bulifant. Well, first of all, I'm not in that category, but even a little celebrity, it's surprising.
Right.
I mean, even you liking to read my book, it's like, really? So I think the surprise is I don't understand it. That's what it is.
I hear you. Or maybe you didn't expect to still have that kind of feeling throughout it all, to have that pleasant surprise that, wow, people remember me.
Yeah, it's a surprise, and it's a shock, and it's I don't understand.
Which is all good. It's all good, though.
Well, that's good. As long as it's good, that's okay. But I don't know. It just surprises me.
Well, yeah, I think that's just modesty, folks. You're hearing it clearly here. And,
well, thank you. And I'm still here. That's what I can't believe. I feel like I'm still 20-something. And here I am, 85. And so many of my friends have passed away. And people on the Mary Tyler Moore Show are all gone. The people in the Broadway play I did, the Paisley Convertible, they've all gone on to the next world, which doesn't frighten me at all. I look at it as another adventure. And if I don't see Roger, I'm going to be so pissed off. I really am. I mean, boy. But I think I've had an incredibly full life with incredibly wonderful men and the greatest children anyone could have, all of them, not just the ones I birthed. And I just feel blessed out of my mind.
Now that's the way to end an interview, folks.
Thank you.
Joyce, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. There you have it, another Retro TV Radio episode in the books. Pick up a copy of My 4 Hollywood Husbands by hitting the link in my description, where you'll also find a link to her website. It's an easy find on Amazon too, and in Joyce's own words, the book offers anyone caught in the web of addiction inspiration to detach and go on with their lives. First you must learn, perhaps mistakes will follow, but if one keeps learning and trying, there can be a happy ending. Please subscribe to this podcast and maybe leave me a positive rating and review. You can follow me at Golden Rage of TV on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and on Twitter at Golden Rage of TV1. This is Pat McCormack, and thanks for listening to Retro TV Radio.